Hello, everybody. We're going to take a look at the rigs that you guys have made for, what is it, week 11, I believe it is. So we've got everything functional except for skin. This is just the skin file that I was using to demonstrate for the next part, which has parts of the mesh working and moving. It's not completely paint weighted because I stopped short of just like running through everything, so it would take a couple hours. But yeah, this is what we're aiming for in the end. Let's go ahead and open up all of the homework assignments and see what we've got. So here we've got Devon's first. It's kind of cool when I look in the homework folders, they're all the same size, kilobytes, and most of you guys had 1 megabyte files, so that's like really cool to see that everything's kind of functioning there. So let's take a look. We're going to just turn off the geometry because that won't work yet. There we go. And play with the various controllers and just make sure they're doing the right thing. So here's the root controller completely moving around. I want to check both rotation and motion most of the time. We've got the hip swing. There we go. That's correct. Okay. Kind of weird. My channel box is empty. Why is the channel box empty? Oh, the controls layer. Huh. So the controls layer was set to render, but I was still able to select it for some reason. And now I've set it back and the channels are there again. Well, that was a weird error. I don't know what was going on. I don't think it's due to the file. So we'll just keep going. Here are the 2 spines. They look good. All right. Shoulders. Right. Neck. Moving all of those controllers around. Head. And jaw. Great. Okay. And if I move these, they shouldn't do anything. So just to check, except for move their children. So they do move their children controllers, but they shouldn't move the skeleton. So it's an argument for getting rid of the ability to move these things, but I prefer to just leave it because then it helps in zeroing things out when you just grab everything. Just be responsible. Sometimes instead of deleting it, you just lock those. That way you can always zero them, but it doesn't do anything, or set them to not be animatable. Let's check the pole vector for the elbow. Great. And so now this is the tricky one where we're going to see if the wrist and stuff all work out. We get in real close here. Okay, so if I twist, there we go, we can see both of them moving. And if I let the bones be selectable, there we go. We've got a expression, and constraint. Very good. Moves around, rotates, and it looks like the knuckles are not staying completely locked. Maybe they are. Actually, I think they are, and it's just an optical illusion because I'm looking at a skeleton. So here they're completely even. How I'll be able to tell is if I move down here and the hand drifts. Okay, no, the hand's not drifting. It's fine. Yeah, okay. Because that part came after the main video, so there's a chance some people don't do it. If you don't do it, then I'm not going to knock off points for that, but it is going to be inconvenient to animate your rig after that point. I actually don't see a thumb controller, though. That part you do need. So, unless I'm blind, I'm not seeing a thumb. There's one over on this one. You can see that one's drifting away because it's out of range. Let's do this. So this one, okay, so slight problem for Devon. This side is not matching the fingers to the wrist, but it has a thumb controller. The other side doesn't have a thumb controller. Oh, and this thumb controller doesn't do anything. So you might have missed a couple of steps there. So make sure that you have both sides have thumb controllers, that they do something to the thumbs, and I guess if you did the correction over here, you might as well do it over here also. Let's check the feet, because the feet are another fairly tricky bit. Okay, it looks correct. Yep, the foot is holding its position as I move this around. And then I don't see any set-driven keys for bending ball or toe yet, so you do need that as well. If you don't have those, then you won't be able to do proper walking or running cycles. Okay, so a couple of things that you got to include. Putting those set-driven keys in here to bend the foot and the toe, and then also fixing the fingers and thumbs. All right. So if I turn off the bones layer, grab everything, 0 it, it should all pop right back to default position. Great. Okay. Oh, I didn't check the eyeballs, I guess, but I figure, yeah, that's generally going to be pretty easy. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Next, Kayla. Uh-oh, did we lose people?
Oh yeah, Yang kept joining in and out.
Oh, sometimes he has connection issues. All right, let's take a look at Kayla's. So we've got primary root controller, is not moving anything. So these have to be parented to each other. There was an extra bit of video that I had left out, Kayla, which is now up there as a second one. I also linked it in Discord. Either look on the YouTube channel or look in the Discord because it's there. So this one's not doing anything. This one's not doing anything. Now I'm starting to believe maybe you just didn't get far enough. Let's see. Okay, that's not doing anything. I guess all of that was to do with the video portion that was missing. Maybe let's check the arms. No. Okay, so a lot of the function is missing. So we got to make sure that we get that stuff. No pull vector yet. Do we have no set driven key for bend on here? It looks like it's not. Okay, so we do have an orient constraint for the fingers, but we don't have a bend channel that has been added. Okay. Let's check the leg then. So no IK constraint yet, no channels. Okay, so you got a lot left to do before this is functional. Hopefully you already know what to do, but most of it is like in the videos. I don't want to get too specific because there's just a lot of function missing. It doesn't look like most of it is hooked up yet. Okay. Send me questions if you need to. Thank you. Jesse. Okay. I'm going to turn off the geometry layer. Very good. We've got the root moving around nicely. The hip control. Okay, so the hip control is slightly wrong. You used the wrong kind of constraint here. This is supposed to be a parent constraint, not an orient constraint. So again, my channel box is empty. There we go. So for some reason, like the control layer, if it's set to anything but nothing there, I can still select it, but I can't see the channels. It's really weird. So just leave that one open. So here I'm just going to re-zero that and re-zero the root and show you what I mean. So right now, your hip swivel control, did I move it down? Huh. So the 0 position of your root is probably incorrect also, because it needs to be at the default position here. When I hit 0, it went back to a squat position. Let me just reopen the file to make sure that that's the case without saving. Okay. All right, so yeah, that looks normal. Turn that off and that off. There we go. All right, but your root controller was not frozen. Now, because everything is parented to that, all this stuff has to be unparented before you unfreeze that, or you run the risk of changing something you don't want. Actually, when I think about it, everything should be frozen in place at 0, so I think you could safely. Let's just try it. So with this selected here, I'm going to do modify freeze transformations. Yeah, and none of the controllers are attached to any of the bones, so this should be fine. Let's hit apply. Was not applied because pointer R control translate X is locked. Okay, so on one of them, it didn't do it, but it should have done it here. Yeah. Oh, no. So it's still not freezing its transforms in the correct position. So I guess it's not going to allow that. Oh well. Okay, so you've got to unparent this last, actually unparent all of its children. So all of these from that one. So Shift P. And then this one can be frozen, I think. Where have all its children? Spine, hips. Oh, I think I did the wrong one. Let me try one more time. There we go. So these, sorry, that needs to be unparented. Shift P. I think that's the only one. No, there's one more. This one. Okay, so now we should be able to freeze transformations and then reparent those. So we've got, where'd they go? Okay, spine and hips, middle mouse drag to root. Okay, so the hip controller has transformed too now. Okay, unparenting them, so that one needed to be frozen as well. Modify freeze. Okay, spine is fine. If anything else has transformed, you need to go through and unparent them, freeze their transformations, and that really should have been done before hooking up the function, but this should still work. Okay, so now I should be able to freeze. There we go, or re-zero them. All right, so now for this one, this is just the wrong kind of constraint. It just needs to be a parent constraint, so this swivels around. So what I'm going to do is select that bone down there and edit delete by type constraints. So no more constraint. Then I'm going to grab constrainer, which is the controller, the constrained object, which is the bone, and do constrain parent. All the channels, maintain offset, add. Now when I rotate this, that's what happens. See, it swings out in a kind of radius. So it's like doing the hula. That's what we want. Okay. Let's check the spines. Those look like they work correctly. Okay. Neck and head. Great. Which means the jaw should probably work. Look at controls. Yep, I see them swiveling. All right, let's check the arm. Shrugging. Pull vector. And hand. Okay. Let's check rotation. Yep, it looks like it's distributing it. Cool. And the fingers look like they're matching as well. Great. Bend control, working properly. Oh, I didn't grab them all. Now he's just pointing off into space. All right, that all looks great. And let's try the feet. Okay, so you've got ball and toe roll. So there's ball roll, toe roll, cool. And if we move it around, yeah. Great. Looks good to me. All right, so just a little problem in the zeroing of these controls and the hips needing to be the other kind of constraint, a parent constraint, instead of an orient. And then it looks like you're all set. I didn't see anything else that needed changing. Very good. Thank you. Yang. Yang, I don't know where you went. Sorry if you lost connection. It's going to be in the recording anyway. So let's take a look. So I'm going to turn off the geometry layer. I'm going to make the bones layer visible. Okay, so what's going on with your bones? So Yang put the bones inside the DNT group, which is correct. It's just that I can't see them for testing right now. So I'm going to just turn that back on and leave bones on template just so we can see them wiggling around. Cool. All right. And that also means I can see all the locators and IK handles, but we'll try not to touch them. All right, hip swing controls doing its thing. Let's grab all of these at once. Yep, they're all doing their thing. Shoulder, cool. Whoa, which way did I drag that just then? There we go. Okay, that looks right. Let's rotate. Good, I can see the forearm distributing that twist. Finger and bend. Great. And, oh, elbow. That works, right? Yeah, it does. Great. There's more than one way, by the way, to do the hand controls. In this one, we've got where the forearm distribution rotation is happening. And when we move this around, it also rotates the wrist. There's a way to just completely lock the wrist in space no matter what the elbow does, but we're not currently doing that way. So just know that there's more than one way, and when you use animation rigs, oftentimes that's not what they do. Here we go. But it's not a problem of your rig, Yang. This is how I taught it. Ball roll. Great. And toe roll. I got to say I like using the locators a lot more than using a second set of bones. Okay. And I haven't really tried the root controller for a lot of people, but there we go. All right. Everything looks good. Very nice. Thank you. All right, Miguel. Did you have any trouble doing yours?
Not that I didn't solve, I think.
Excellent. All right, so here we are. Right, geometry's off, bones are on. There we go. It all moves around. Foot controller, we'll start down here. What was the thing that you had to solve?
So the leg, this one you're working on actually, was the one where even no matter how far I moved the knee forward, it was always pushing it to the side. But I ended up just starting over with that leg and copying the other one.
Because this other one worked, and then for no reason. Okay, I don't know. Sometimes that happens. The angles might have been slightly different and we didn't notice. It could have been, I don't know, any number of things, but you did the right thing. Duplicating it, again, means that it took on the same angles. So if the other one worked, that one should work, and there you go. Strange.
And I think I accidentally made the arms the single chains at first, and then switching it over flipped them around, so I had to redo those.
Okay. Yeah, that's a weird one. Yeah, it looks good now. Let's see. So we got, yep, the expression and everything. That expression thing is something I didn't learn until a little bit later, and it's really powerful to be able to use math to hook up relationships like that. You can rig entirely with expressions if you want to, especially if you knew how to cleverly write them. All right, very good. So this all looks completely functional the way I would want it to. Let's go ahead and check the full spine chain. Yep. Whee! All right, very good. So no problems or anything. You got it all set.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Gunter, you think you messed up? Like you were saying earlier? You still here?
Ah, I'm here.
Hello.
Waiting.
Did you say that you thought you messed something up?
Yeah,
Looks okay to
check
me.
the wrists controller.
Okay. Okay, that's so far so good. Yep. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, because I orient, if you go into the
do not touch group.
I don't know.
Well, this is where all the hidden stuff is anyway.
No, not those, but the I went to the wrist and created the group of fingers, you know, to do that thing where the fingers don't.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I oriented that to the wrist.
Well, right now, it's just parented to the hand control, which is correct.
Oh, there's no orient on it?
No.
How can you tell?
Well, I can just look at it and see. Like if I grab this, none of the channels are blue, for one. And for another, constraints are these little orange chain icons in the outliner. And I've got everything open, and there is no orange icon that says that there's a constraint.
Oh, check the bones.
No, it looks like it's just on the right hand instead. He only did it for one hand.
This hand? Oh, I see. So this one, all right, yeah. So they're different right now. So this one over here is orient constrained to what? The wrist. So when the wrist rotates, it rotates. Okay.
Is that going to be a problem?
It doesn't look like one. So the potential problem sometimes is of creating cyclical relationships where one thing rotates and tells something else to rotate, and then a controller there tells the original thing to rotate again, and you get this infinite feedback loop, but I don't think you've created one here. I think that the way you... Well, let me try to move it before I speak too soon. No, it looks fine. I think you've just found a second way to do the same thing. Let me think for just a second. So if it's orient constrained to that bone, but then the group is already parented, no, it should be fine. Strictly speaking, we could delete this orient constraint and nothing would change.
Okay.
So let me just try that with this orient constraint. Because the wrist is already being controlled by the controller, I don't think it's making any difference at all. But if I grabbed the group and edit delete by type constraints, it shouldn't change anything. Yeah, it's still completely locked in the same position relative to the finger. Oh, no, wait. No, it isn't. No, it's off. So then what you did is correct. So is this one wrong? Is this one wrong? This one is not wrong. Okay, what the hell? Because you don't have...
Check the wrist on that one.
Well, I'm looking for the finger controllers to be wandering away, but they're not. So in this one, you've got the finger group as a child of the hand control. There are no constraints. The rotation works properly, and it is not wandering away. Oh, it is wandering away. Yeah, just a little bit. Okay, so what you did the second time, I believe, was the fix. And what you did here is the one that it works, although it will get a little bit out of sync because the wrist bone is controlling the bone positions of all the fingers. So technically, the way you did it the second time is better. That means grabbing this finger control group, or actually, sorry, it means grabbing the bone first, finger control group second, and doing an orient constraint, just like you did on the opposite side. All channels is fine. So that when it rotates, it never gets out of sync with the knuckles. Yeah. See, now they're completely locked to the knuckle position, but they will still appear in the same spot as they did before. So you did it correct on the red one, and we're missing that orient constraint on the blue one.
Okay.
None of that would have stopped you from being able to animate it. It just would have meant that the controllers looked a little bit weird.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for asking, though, because that's a good clarification to get, I think.
I'm just glad that I got it correctly.
Yeah.
The second time.
Well, it's okay. Rigging is not that sort of thing where most people get it right first try all the time, even professionals. It's so complicated that you have to remind yourself how things function and fix little problems that arise. And sometimes the problems are inexplicable with rigging. You'll have something that doesn't work even though it's worked a dozen times before. And without any available explanation, you just have to fix it somehow. So here I just flipped the knee by accident, doing ball and knee rotation. But I think there's nothing wrong with your rig. It's just that this controller needs to be further forward. As soon as this crosses a certain line, this vertical line, it thinks it's inside out, but there's nothing wrong with your foot. So just be aware that when you animate it, you might get knee flipping. Just move these further away and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I know that, but you imagine an invisible line drawn between ankle and hip. That's the vector. And so these, when they're too close, it passed that vector, right? And so it's going to create an illusion. But if I just lift this up or move it forward, they're fine. Okay? All right.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Elias had some trouble, he was saying, but I don't know if he solved it. So let's find out. He was one of the first people that pointed out there was something missing in the video, and I went back and looked and thought that I found it, but apparently not. Sorry about that, you guys. What I was having was I was getting a bunch of phone calls and had to stop and start recording over and over. And so I did record everything, but then when I edited it, I was cutting out duplicate parts, and I must have cut out the whole orient constraint on the body because it was a very short section. Okay, this looks good so far. Great. Great. Okay. And yep, works. Let's check the hip. Perfect. Root. Looks good. I think he must have solved all his problems because he didn't keep sending me more messages. Yeah, I guess he figured it all out. Very good. Shoulder. Good. Okay, let's check the wrist and hand. I spent an awful lot of time on the wrist and hand because I knew it was complicated and I wanted to make sure that you guys had a chance. So it looks like he may not have done what you just did, which is to correct the knuckle positions, which you don't have to, but it will just make it inconvenient to animate. So one more time to show what's needed there. Let's return this back to its default. In fact, let's return all the controllers back to their default, which is always a good idea before you do any additional changes. Okay, so on the fingers, their finger group. So you don't currently have a finger control group, Elias. So you're going to need to make one. So they're all right now children of the hand control. Let me think. No, we do need the group. Okay, so I'm going to grab all of the, and you do have a thumb control group. That's good. So I'm going to grab all the finger controls and the thumb control group, edit group. Right now, I need to put the center of pivot in the wrist. So first, I'm just going to modify center pivot to get it on screen. Then use insert to snap it to the wrist bone, holding V. There we go. Okay, so this is the zeroed position of that group. You can name this group or not. I mean, it's going to be pretty obvious. We're just going to set it up and never touch it ever again. But now we want the wrist bone to control the finger group with a orient constraint. This group is still the child of the hand control, which is also good, so that when it moves, the finger controls move, but when it rotates, instead of obeying the hand control, which is going half the distance because we're distributing the rotation, the wrist bone is going the total distance, which is why we have to orient constrain it to that. So now you can see they don't get out of sync. Okay, so kind of a small detail, really, but something that you guys will be happy that you did. And we have finger bends. Very good. Eye constraints. Now it's going to be impossible for me to tell because they're so small, but yeah, we've got them. All right. I think that's it. Very good. I'm glad it all worked out for you, Elias. Thank you. Noah. Okay. So Noah, let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, so the root controller is not moving. It looks like most of your controllers are not grouped to each other. They're not parented to each other. So they're probably not going to be doing the right thing. Right now we don't have relationship between the hip swivel and the pelvis. Yeah, so most of the root doesn't look like it's functioning. Shoulder isn't functioning. Pull vector's there, good. So you may also have to look at the second video. Yeah, so the point constraint on the IK is not working. The rotation is. Yeah, so you probably followed the video and only what the video said, but then it didn't function the right way at the end. The reason for that is because there was a missing section, and I've since posted that up in Discord chat as well as on the YouTube channel. Go check that out, and it's all the ways that you can set up the rest of this. Essentially, it's just setting orient constraints, and in one case, parent constraint and another parent constraint, orient constraint, orient constraint, orient constraint. This one also orient, orient, orient on all of that so that it rotates the right bones, and then parenting them together so that when a larger part moves, all the rest of them move, and then when a smaller part moves, the rest of them move also. Okay, so check out that video, and that should answer those questions. Let's check out the feet. All the IKs are moved by point constraints. So you'll be able to see that in there as well, that these controls move the IK. In the case of the feet, it's a little bit different. I think it moves what does it move? I forget offhand, but it moves this whole system around. But that IK is at the end of that chain, so it moves properly. So that probably means that we don't have foot bend controllers, even though that was in the video. So we do want to get that hooked up as well. So check it out and make sure that you can follow those instructions as well. If that solves everything, then great. If it doesn't, then we'll have to see where the rest of the stuff fell through the cracks. Send me a message if you have trouble with that, and I can help you, catch up wherever it needs to be. Because your rig won't be functional until we have all that. Thank you. Paul. All right, let's go ahead and test. Great, so this is all moving. The thumb looks a little bit weird, and it might be my imagination, or it might have just rotated itself really strangely. Okay, some things appear to be semi-broken. Let me reload this to make sure that I didn't do that. Okay, yeah, it is broken right now, I can see. So the thumb is maybe just it's in an animated position. Okay, yeah, it's just in an animated position. So let's just zero that all out. Okay, so that's correct except for the orientation of the object itself. And its pivot point is moved really far over for some reason. Let's see what else is going on. I'm going to re-zero this. If you are, Paul, if you're not re-zeroing everything as you're rigging, you really need to. Because if things are wandering away, when you set up a different relationship, then it's going to affect all the other ones. I can see the pivot point is not snapped to the wrist, and it needs to be, because that's a very important part of keeping the control stable. If you're not snapping, here's how you do it. When you're moving the pivot point, hold down V for vertex, and I have to move my manipulator so I don't accidentally grab a ring, but hold down V for vertex and grab from the center circle, and it will snap to a joint. Now, I can't do it right now because you've already got the relationships all hooked up, but that's what you have to do when there's no logic being fed. Your forearm is also flexing. I can see a definite bend in the forearm, so I'm not sure what happened there, but it's definitely not doing what it should, even though the rotation is 0. So that leads me to believe that the way you got the forearm bone was to click, click, click rather than insert, which would have made a straight line. It looks like the expression is working. So we've got 26 degrees there, 53 here, and 26 here. Yeah, so the expression is working properly. And, oh, I moved the wrong thing, my fault. And the point constraint to the IK is working properly. It's just that this bone is a little bit offset. That wouldn't be like a deal breaker if you had to hurry. It would just cause slight problems in the forearm appearing to flex a little bit. It's not going to bend when you bend your arm. It would just be slightly misaligned, so we might see that in the end result. It would be a good idea to fix it, but I would say skip it for now because everything else is working properly. And we do have other things to fix first. That's working. Let's check the... Oh, whoa, okay. So here's an example of something I can't undo. So I just rotated that, and I tried to hit undo, and I couldn't. And so that means that there's some problem. So what you've got here, I think, is a feedback loop. Because as I'm rotating this just a tiny bit, it's moving much, much further than I'm expecting it to move. So some relationship is not working. I can see the root controller has incoming orient constraints on it. That shouldn't be. So this root controller, it should not be constrained to anything. It should be doing the controlling instead. So we definitely want to remove that constraint. Okay, so now I'm going to re-zero that. And that's re-zeroed. Let me check what the spine is doing. The spine is in a rotated position already. I don't know what it's attributable to. 0, 0. Okay. So let's check now. What happens if I... Okay, that's correct and fine. This one, that's correct and fine. I think you just had one extra. Oh, okay. No. Let's see. Okay, it's the parent constraint here. So I don't know if there's a way at this point to fix the bad rotation here. I'm going to just type in 0 and hope. That looks fine, actually. Okay, so this controller, the root, should be parent constraining this bone. So this first, ring first, bone second, constrain parent, so that when the controller moves, that bone and any other attached skeleton moves that can move. When it rotates, it moves and all the other controllers move. But when the children move, that stays stable. Yeah, so this is functioning correctly now. So you had a constraint coming into this control, which turned those channels blue, which need to be deleted. And then the relationship between the primary bone and this controller was not existent. So that one had to control that. You may have just done it backwards and used the wrong kind of constraint. I didn't exactly see when I was messing with it. Okay, further problem. When I zeroed this, it appears to have not been centered on the grid. So we got to make sure that that is centered on the grid and at the proper height and all of that. So it might be worth it to get rid of some of the constraints and parent relationships on your primary controllers here in the middle, just to make sure that you can freeze everything in a zeroed position before you reconnect it. That would be the safest thing to do. And it would be faster than fixing problems that result from this. You've also got your knee controls just too close to the body. It would cause flipping eventually, but there's nothing wrong with that. Just pull them away. There we go. Let's check the feet. Ball roll is working. Toe roll is working, although you did choose the opposite direction, which might end up being annoying. So when I drag to the right, positive number, this folded forward. When I drag to the right on this one, it went backward. So just a little kind of, nitpick, but not something that broke or anything. And we can move this around and we can rotate it. Great. If I move the primary controller, yep, it displaces everything, which it should. And nothing is distorting. And yeah, I think that's all the stuff that I needed to check. Cool. So most of it's functioning just fine. Most of the issues were just surrounded in the pelvis spine area, and they had to do with things not being zeroed. But as long as everything is in the right position when your file opens, then you shouldn't have to, just don't move anything, unparent and delete the constraints and then remake them, and then you should be fine. All right, thank you. Andrew. Mercifully, the construction crews moved down the street a little bit. It's getting awfully loud for me in here. Cool. That looks like it works properly. Let's rotate. Good. Hip sway is not correct. Okay, so hip sway, two things. There we go. The hip controller seems to be the parent of this, which it shouldn't be. When this moves, it shouldn't be moving the upper body at all. So take spine. I should really zero this before I change that. There we go, zero back. Take spine and move it out from underneath hips and just to the root control instead. So these are siblings rather than being parents. So all of that should still function properly. Great. Then the hip sway, it shouldn't be an orient like it is now. It needs to be a parent constraint. So we click down here on that bone. Let's go ahead and delete that. Delete by type constraint. And then you just need to grab the controller, the bone, constrain parent, so that when this rotates with its pivot point up here, it swings it left and right instead of just rotating from down there. Okay. All right, then the spines, check those. Great. Yep, they all look good. Shoulder, perfect. Eyeball look at, probably. Yep, I can see it moving. And let's check the arms. Okay, Arm looks... Okay, it looked hyperextended. It was just what I had done to it. Yeah, that looks right. Good. Okay, the finger groups are not moving at all, I could see, because you probably left them as just attached to the controller, but that means they're going to go out of sync. Actually, that looks right. Am I dreaming? Oh, that's the wrong elbow. This elbow. No, okay, so they are just parented to the wrist controller, and I already explained a couple of times how to fix that, and it's at the end of the first video. But this is not a game changer. It's just going to make it annoying to control your fingers. Oh, something weird was happening there. Your hand should not be moving when I do this, only the joint, so that is worrying. Yeah, that's an orient constraint, that's fine, but why did this move? Let's find out. Okay. So where is that bone? Here it is. Okay, I'm just checking everything. That's really weird. That should not move the palm. Why is it moving the palm? Right, but I only see one orient. Oh, no, there's a lot of them. Okay. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different constraints all feeding into the wrist. So you should, I can see these different weight values here. And strangely, like Maya used to break these into different constraint nodes, but now it's all one node with several different weights. They need to be deleted, most of them. The only one that you should have is the one going from this controller to the rotates, Y and Z. The rest of them need to be gotten rid of. I'm not even going to demonstrate that here because you've got to go to your default position and then on this wrist, just delete by type constraints and do all the constraints again. It won't get rid of your expressions, by the way. Your expressions will be fine. You're just going to have to redo from here to the bone the constraint on Y and Z. Okay, and then don't constrain these things to that bone anymore. All right, so that's a pretty significant one, but it's an easy enough fix. Just want to see if you did the same thing over here. No, you did it different over here. Okay, so this one's probably closer to correct then. Let's see. Okay, arm still bends. Great. Rotation. Oh, okay. There's some weird problems happening with rotation. Let's go see that one. Okay, there's a pole vector constraint there. Not sure what I'm seeing. It's flipping upside down over and over. Here's the bone. Here's the wrist, forearm, wrist. Here's the children. I'm going to close the fingers. Wrist orient constraint. Okay, it has two. The finger control group, you did also orient constrain the bone to, which is the wrong way around. And it's got the correct one here. I wonder if I can just break connections just like this to fix it. No. Delete selected? No. You have to get rid of the entire relationship. So let me reopen your file real quick before I mess with anything. Okay, so we're back, but now I know that there's something to fix there. I'm going to zoom in here. So for this bone, we have to delete by type constraints, no more constraints. Then make sure that this one is constraining, orient constraining only Y and Z. There are some rotates in here. They're very, very small. I'm going to ignore them. So I'm going to go to orient, maintain offset, and then rather than all, we're doing Y and Z only. Remember, the order you select things matters. First is the controlling thing. Second is the thing being controlled. So constrainer, constrained. Okay. Then apply. So now it still moves, and it still rotates, and it still rotates this way and that way. The group, let me just check if the group is doing the right thing or not. So here's the group. So no, the finger group right now is just a child of the hand controller, which is almost correct. But it means that when I move the elbow, the fingers don't, so it'll get out of sync. So what I want to do is re-zero this, and then do a orient constrain from the wrist bone. So the wrist bone is the controller in this case, to the finger group. Right? So the finger group will be following the wrist bone's orientation. Constrain orient all channels. Apply. So now whenever that bone rotates, the finger group rotates too, so it can never get out of sync because the pull vector will rotate the arm like that, and now you can see the knuckles are locked. So that's the correct way to set up that wrist relationship. Do that for both sides, and then you should be in good shape there. And I think that was it. Everything else appeared to work properly. All right. Thank you. And if you have any questions, just send me a message. Isaac. Last one. Okay. Okay. Root is working. Now the legs look really weird. I think, again, because these are too close. There we go. See, when I pull them further away, they start to behave. Oh, and your center of pivot is a little bit off for these. You can actually change that just by... Oh, actually, I wonder if it's going to affect the constraint. Let's find out. Modify center pivot just on that object. It did. Did it break anything? Actually, it's functioning correctly now. So just modify center pivot then. And they'll behave a little bit better, but they do have to remain in front of the legs for this to work properly. Otherwise, they'll flip inside out. Okay, so that looks fine. Let's try the hip swivel. Looks good. Okay. Feet. Yep, they're able to place and rotate properly. And ball roll. Oh, your ball roll is really, really restricted. You might want to go into the graph editor and allow that to rotate further, because really you can fold your foot from toe to arch all the way over to here, especially during athletic moves. So that's probably a little too restricted. That one's more than enough though. So the way that you fix this is to open up graph editor, and we have to select the object that has that relationship on it. So it's the locators. So it's going to be in here. Which one? So we're on the left. So the left foot, and we're talking about the left. I'm trying to remember now. Left locator ball? I can't remember anymore. I lose track of this stuff so easily. I'm looking for it to appear in here. But it's like, unless I'm working through it directly, I always forget. There it is. Left locator ball. And it's because I opened them up too much. Those were leaf level transforms I was looking at. So it's right here. Locator toe and locator heel and locator ball. Where did ball go? There it is. Ball. So in the graph editor, what I was looking for was this graph to appear, right? Because this represents your set driven key. So if I grab this and move ball roll to its extreme to 10, right? This is how much rotation there is. So then if I grab ball, so here is, and it uses frames for this, for that value. So this is a value of -9, a value of 0, and a value of +10. So if I just grab that and move it upward, I'm increasing the angle. So I would recommend something like that for the angle. I also kind of think, did you actually set that for -9? Oh, I guess you did. Huh. -10 or whatever. Okay, well that's fine. I think mine was like -5 or something, but it's all right. So now see how that can go further because I increased that value. The only thing that you may want to additionally change is that this tangent now looks weird. Just click the automatic button again. Ah, it didn't let me. Okay, so I'm going to rotate that manually just like that. So it's smooth traveling through. It wouldn't really cause much of an issue, but it can be a nice thing to fix. There we go. So I'd recommend increasing that. All right, and check the other foot. It works properly. Same thing, I'd probably just increase the thing. Don't worry about that, by the way. That's just because we're too far away from the handle. If we get close enough, then it'll work properly. There we go. That always happens. Okay, and we can flip the toe over. Good. Did I check the arms yet on yours? Let's make sure I do. The shoulder shrug doesn't appear to be working right now. You have to orient constrain the controller to the clavicle bone so that when that moves, then it shrugs the shoulders. Okay, so you might be missing some of the stuff that was available in the other video. Rotate constrain here. I'm not seeing it happen. Or sorry, orient constrain. Orient constrain should be working here for the skull as well. And for the jaw pivot, so that would be this bone right here. These are all in the second video. Okay, so the wrist IKs are not being controlled by this. That's a point constraint IK handle to this controller, also in that video. And pull vector, yeah. So you got to catch up on all of that stuff before we're completely done. But your rotates, yeah, your rotates work. Okay. All right. Very good. So you got a little bit left to do. Watch the second video so you can get the rest of that function. And then I kind of recommend fixing that foot, just increasing that range a little bit. After that, you should be golden. All right. Thank you. And send me a message if you have any trouble. That is it. That's everyone's assignment. Do you guys have any questions, or would you like any demonstrations from me of things that I could just do from scratch?
I think we've got our plates full with the next part.
Yeah, I mean,
got my plate full with the game jam.
Right.
And my other class.
The next part is not really difficult to understand. It's just a lot of work. So what I end up doing in the video is demonstrating about half of it, because if I kept going, it would just be, you know, repetitive. But paint weighting is not really so bad once you get the hang of it. I also linked 2 additional resources in the assignment. A guy that talks on video about the concept of the thing, and then also an article that goes over a lot of concepts in paint weighting. So it should be helpful.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, you guys. Good luck. Make sure you start early. Get sleep. Drink some water. Go to the gym, etc. Bye.